I woke up on the very day the crown prince was choosing his consort, just as my concubine mother was insisting on tucking a vibrant peony into my hair. The double petals of the peony were in full bloom, densely layered and dripping with lush color. Tucked into my hair, it illuminated my face, making it look radiant. My mother nodded with satisfaction, smoothing down my stray hairs. The peony is the king of flowers, and our man is blessed with such a gorgeous appearance. Once you enter the East Palace today, it is guaranteed to eclipse everyone else and catch His Royal Highness the Crown Prince's eye at first glance. I stared at the blooming peony in the bronze mirror and spoke softly. Yet I heard my eldest sister's maid say the eldest sister is wearing a Chinese herbaceous peony, xiaoyao, today. The herbaceous peony and the peony look so much alike. What if His Royal Highness the Crown Prince cannot tell them apart? My mother's hands paused for a moment. Then she smiled again, her fingertips tapping my forehead. Silly child. As long as you can outshine the others and win the favor of the Crown Prince, does it matter whether he can tell them apart? It did matter. In my past life, Crown Prince Xiaichen could not tell them apart, which was why he married me. Unaware of the underlying truth back then, I foolishly believed it was love at first sight. On our wedding day, he drank heavily and vomited in disarray. I wiped him clean, changed him into fresh garments, and kept vigil by his bed without closing my eyes for the entire night. When he woke the next day, Xiaichen looked at the dark circles under my eyes and remained silent for a long time. He asked me, "The marriage register says your name is Xiao Wanxi. I do not yet know your childhood pet name." Joy filled my heart, and I shyly told him, "My name is Man. My mother gave it to me." Upon hearing this, he offered a gentle smile. The wild grasses spread, with the dew glistening bright. "There is a beauty, clear-eyed and lovely. Man, it suits you well." Xiaichen was an exceptionally good man. He granted me the supreme honor of being the Crown Prince's consort, never once stinting on my food, clothing, or daily provisions. Throughout the East Palace, everyone respected me, and no one dared to give me the slightest disrespect. Yet, he rarely grew close to me, apart from the 1st and 15th days of every month, when he would follow protocol and stay overnight in my palace quarters. He invariably spent all his remaining time shut away in his study. At first, I always wanted to find him, brewing soups and making pastries, happily carrying my food box over. I wanted to ask if his court affairs had gone smoothly that day, or tell him about the newly blossomed flowers in the back garden. Yet every time, his personal attendants intercepted me outside the door. "His Highness is currently attending to essential state affairs, so I must ask your Highness to wait a moment." So I waited, waiting from the Crown Prince's consort to the Empress, from hair as glossy as a waterfall to temples touched with frost. Other imperial concubines in the palace successively conceived and gave birth to princes and princesses, while my womb remained barren. The memorials of the outer court piled up like mountains, and the censors accused me of infertility, petitioning to depose the Empress. To quell the public outcry, Xiaichen adopted 2 children from other consorts and placed them under my name, having them call me mother. Thus, everyone declared that the Emperor and Empress were deeply devoted, bound by an unbreakable bond. Even I almost believed it, thinking that in his heart, I finally held a place, until the day Xiaichen grew frail and withered, breathing his last upon his sickbed, clutching tightly in his arms a withered stem of a herbaceous peony. As he looked at me, his eyes held only the exhaustion of sweet release. He said, "Your sister and I accommodated you for a lifetime. If there is an afterlife, do not scheme in such a crooked manner ever again." My mind roared with a deafening crash, leaving me unable to hear anything else. So that was it. So the glory of my entire lifetime was merely a monumental misunderstanding, a fond accommodation born of 2 similar flowers. I questioned him frantically, half mad. "Since you never liked me, why did you choose me back then? Why did you marry me and make me empress?" Though extremely weak, he still forced himself to explain. "I married you because your sister persuaded me. She said that if you were publicly rejected at the consort selection banquet, your reputation would suffer, and you would likely find it difficult to secure a good match thereafter. As for elevating you to empress, He drew a breath and continued. It was to preserve the glory of the Chiao family, so your sister would not have to worry over the clan. Every single word and phrase concerned my eldest sister. Not a single one was for me. Chiao Wanqi. My entire life had been nothing more than a joke. I had stolen another person's token of affection, usurped another person's marriage, and reveled in it complacently, believing it was a blessing I had earned myself. My heart shattered completely. Not long after he passed away, I too died of a broken heart. Now that I have been granted a second chance, I refuse to usurp what belongs to someone else ever again. With this thought in mind, I raised my hand and resolutely pulled the gorgeous peony from my hair, dashing it fiercely to the ground and grinding it beneath the toe of my shoe. There are thousands of flowers in this world. Why must I wear one that resembles my eldest sister's? I lifted my head and met my mother's stunned gaze directly. I will not wear it. Panicked, my mother stepped forward to grab my hand. You ungrateful child. How can you fail to distinguish good from bad? I am doing all of this for your own good. Her tone was filled with exasperation. Your sister and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince made an agreement long ago, using the herbaceous peony as a token. As long as you, halfway through her sentence, she stopped abruptly, clamping a hand over her mouth in fright. Yet I had already heard it. All the mysteries of my past life suddenly clicked into place in this very instant. From the very beginning, this had been a trap set for me. My mother and father had been childhood sweethearts, but an imperial decree forced my father to marry my legal mother. My mother could only enter the household as a concubine. For decades, she harbored a bitter resentment in her heart, constantly competing with the legal mother and fighting with the eldest sister. Now, she even wanted me to snatch the marriage away from my eldest sister. Yet I was unwilling. That unearned glory, that illusory devotion between emperor and empress, I had already endured it once. I gently shook off her hand, shook my head, and left her with a single sentence. Matters of the heart are predestined by heaven. What does not belong to me cannot be forced, even if stolen. With that, I lifted my skirts and ran out the door. Rushing headlong to the front gates of the estate, I nearly collided with someone. I managed to steady myself and looked up to meet my eldest sister's caring gaze. Whatever is the matter? She supported my arm, her voice as warm as a spring breeze. You are about to leave for the banquet at the East Palace. Why are you crying like this? Did concubine Lian lecture you again? My eldest sister, Xiao Wanru, lived up to her name. Her temperament had always been gentle and serene. Today, she wore a moonlight white gown, the hem embroidered with delicate sprays of orchids. In her hair, a herbaceous peony was just about to bloom, making her fair face look ethereal and refined, much like an immortal maiden under the moonlight. Looking at her, a turbulent wave of sour grief surged through my heart. It had been so long since I last saw her looking like this. After my marriage to Xia Chen in my past life, she had requested to enter Jing'an Temple on the outskirts of the capital to take monastic vows and practice Buddhism with shaved hair, remaining unmarried for the rest of her days. Amidst dim green lamps and morning bells, she spent her entire life in such solitary desolation. Only on every birthday of mine would she send someone to deliver a scroll of Buddhist scriptures copied in her own hand, written in delicate calligraphy and carrying a faint scent of sandalwood. She was so wonderfully kind, so kind that she never once blamed me for the petty, base maneuvers of my mother. Yet I had utterly failed her for an entire lifetime. I forced my tears back down and managed to smile. It is nothing. I was in a rush when I left just now and accidentally misplaced my hair ornament, which panicked me for a moment. Hearing this, my eldest sister shook her head with a wry smile and tapped the tip of my nose. I thought something major had happened. Is something like this really worth crying over? She gestured to the maid behind her. Xiaoyue picked many fresh flowers in the garden this morning. If you like, just pick one. The maid named Xiaoyue stepped forward carrying a delicate flower basket filled with dewy, tender blossoms, layered petal upon petal, peonies, hibiscus, China roses, blazing in brilliant reds and purples, vying for beauty. Yet my gaze landed on a cluster of pale pink little flowers in the corner. The consort selection banquet could not be avoided. Since that was the case, I might as well choose the most inconspicuous option. I will take this one. I reached out and carefully pinched that cluster of flowering crabapple. My eldest sister hesitated for a moment. This crabapple blossom is far too small. I am afraid it lacks presence. Man, your appearance is gorgeously bright, so it would suit you better to wear larger blooms. I shook my head, tucked that tiny cluster of crabapples into my hair, and said softly, "At the Crown Prince's consort selection, people look at the person, not the flower. If he does not like me, even if I wear the entire garden on my head, it will be useless." Upon hearing this, my eldest sister burst out laughing and took my hand. "Where on earth did you learn such grand philosophies? You speak in complete sets." She led me toward the carriage waiting outside the estate. "All right, the hour is late. Let us hurry along. Do not grieve over a flower anymore. Once the banquet concludes, I shall treat you to the iced plum sugar balls at that shop in the south of the city." Iced plum sugar balls. Those were the sweets I loved most as a child. Later on, as I grew older, my mother always insisted that a young lady must maintain dignified posture and deportment, forbidding me from eating such street snacks. Over time, even I almost forgot what they tasted like. A surge of warmth flooded my heart, and I nodded heavily. All right. The consort selection banquet was held in the back garden of the East Palace, where many noble daughters had already arrived, gathering in small groups. A massive landscape screen separated the inner and outer areas. I found an inconspicuous spot and stood quietly. Not long after, the gentle voice of the Empress drifted from behind the screen. "Chinner, those who have arrived today are all daughters of prominent and distinguished families in the capital. Is there anyone who catches your eye?" Unconsciously, I held my breath. In my past life, the moment the Empress finished speaking, Xiai Chen had ordered someone to send the Jade Scepter, symbolizing the status of the Crown Prince's consort, directly before me. Yet this time, silence hung behind the screen for a moment before Xiai Chen's clear voice, crisp like colliding jade stones, rang out, replying to Mother Empress. "This son, indeed, has someone in his heart. She is from the Qiao family." My heart skipped a beat, and I abruptly lifted my eyes to look at the blurred figure behind the screen. Yet before he could finish his sentence, a low exclamation escaped the surrounding noble daughters. Finding it strange, I suddenly felt a tickling sensation near my temples. A butterfly had flown in from somewhere, circled around me, and finally landed lightly on the cluster of crabapple flowers in my hair, its wings still fluttering slightly. This sight drew the attention of those behind the screen. Looking quite astonished, the Empress smiled and asked, "Which family's young lady is this? To be able to attract a butterfly to alight upon her? It is truly an auspicious sign. Step forward and let me have a look." Everyone's gazes converged on me all at once, with no way to avoid it. I took a step forward and curtsied. "Your subject's daughter, Qiao Wanqi, pays her respects to the Empress." The Empress appraised me for a moment, her smile deepening. "So you are the second young lady of the Qiao family, and you are indeed blessed with fine features. The crabapples at your temples bloom so uniquely that even butterflies favor you." She paused, shifting the conversation as her gaze turned towards Xiai Chen. "Chinner, you just said the young lady in your heart belongs to the Qiao family. Could it be Wanqi?" A pang of tightness hit my chest, and I prepared to open my mouth in denial. Yet Xiai Chen's voice rang out first, carrying an undeniable firmness. "Mother Empress misunderstands. The person in this son's heart is the eldest young lady of the Qiao family, Qiao Wanru." Looking through the screen, his gaze landed on my eldest sister. In this son's eyes, no matter how lovely worldly blossoms may be, they can never rival that single spray of herbaceous peony. As these words fell, the entire garden fell into dead silence. I quickly chimed in, my voice not loud, yet clear enough. "May the Empress forgive me, but this subject's daughter has a restless nature and lacks my sister's poise and steady grace. My skills in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting are inferior in every way. Naturally, my sister is far more suited to the position of Crown Prince's consort." Xiai Chen and I sang in harmony. The smile on the Empress's face faded slightly, appearing somewhat regretful. Yet she quickly seemed to remember something. shifting her gaze to her side. Speaking of which, the fifth prince is also unwed. She looked toward that person, her tone carrying a hint of discussion. This empress finds the second young lady of the Chiao family utterly delightful. How about I bestow her upon you as your primary wife? What do you say? I followed the direction of her gaze. That person wore brocade robes and a jade belt. With handsome, delicate features, it was none other than the fifth prince, Xia Tingyu. He was idly playing with the pastries on the table with his fingertips, looking utterly bored. Hearing the empress's words, he raised his eyelids with extreme annoyance. All day long, you do nothing but bestow marriages. Did I not say I would never marry in this lifetime? His tone carried irritation. If Mother Empress pushes me any further, I shall go straight to. The rest of his words vanished completely from his lips the moment he caught sight of my face. Accustomed to his antics, the Empress helplessly massaged her temples. Go do what? Last time it was hanging yourself. The time before that throwing yourself into the lake. And today what novel way of dying have you dreamed up? Xia Tingyu did not reply. He simply stared blankly right at me, his pair of attractive peach blossom eyes filled with astonishment, his thin earlobes turning bright red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Feeling somewhat ill at ease under his gaze, I lowered my eyes slightly. In my past life, I had only crossed paths with this fifth prince on a few occasions. Whenever we met at palace banquets, he would exchange polite greetings before hurrying away. I had always assumed he detested me. Yet now, he cleared his throat, straightened his spine abruptly, and tried hard to put on the appearance of a dignified gentleman. Ahem, dying or whatever. Speaking of such things on a fine day is terribly inauspicious. He offered a solemn explanation. Mother Empress, just now I must have been bewitched. But the moment I laid eyes on the second young lady of the Chiao family, I felt refreshed in body and spirit, as if my very bones had grown strong, and I even found the will to go on living. This unvarnished declaration caused the surrounding palace attendants to cover their mouths and chuckle. My own face inevitably grew burning hot. Delighted beyond measure, the Empress pointed right at him with a laugh. Very well, very well. Since that is the case, then this Empress shall grant you too. No. A cold voice cut off the Empress. It was Xia Yichen. Xia Tingyu's eyes widened, bristling like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Why not? Does Imperial elder brother believe I am unworthy of the second young lady of the Chiao family? Xia Yichen's gaze swept over me, carrying a trace of unperceived scrutiny and chill. Quite the opposite. His thin lips parted, yet the words he uttered were piercingly cruel. I believe she is unworthy of you. A mere daughter of a concubine, full of scheming calculations, how could she possibly serve as an imperial prince's primary wife? Before a crowd of onlookers, these words were far too harsh. Even my eldest sister, who always possessed an easygoing temper, furrowed her brow. I felt as though a massive boulder had slammed down onto my chest, pulling me heavily downward. Such a harsh assessment. Could it be that he had also been reborn? I raised my head and met his gaze. If your highness dislikes me, you could simply say so. Why humiliate me publicly and ruin my reputation? Xia Yichen sneered coldly. If you did not do it on purpose, why did butterflies happen to alight upon your temples just as I stated my intentions to Mother Empress? Was it not an attempt to steal the spotlight and usurp your sister's position as Crown Prince's consort? His words felt like a basin of icy water poured over my head. The smile on the Empress's face subsided as well, and her gaze toward me took on a hint of probing inquiry. So that was how it was. No matter what I did, in his eyes, I was always in the wrong. Either way, this crime was pinned on me for good. Just as the courtyard stood in silence, my eldest sister suddenly spoke up. Your Highness speaks incorrectly. Her voice remained gentle, yet carried an undeniable power. The crabapples at Manman's temples were personally pinned there by me at the estate entrance just now. Judging by your Highness's words, it would seem as though I, her elder sister, would actively help my younger sister steal my own limelight. My eldest sister paused, a faint, wispy smile touching her lips. I am not magnanimous enough to reach such lengths. Xia Yichen's expression shifted. turning toward my eldest sister with panicked urgency. He hastily explained, "Wanru, that is not what I meant, enough." The Empress cut him off, her tone tinged with exhaustion and displeasure. "Chinner, what on earth has gotten into you today? Since your heart is set on the eldest young lady of the Chiao family, why must you repeatedly drag others into this?" Stunned as if struck by a lightning bolt, Xiai Chen froze in place. After a long pause, he lowered his head dejectedly, his voice hoarse. This son has been bewitched." With those words, he signaled the eunuch behind him to present the Jade Scepter of Selection before my eldest sister. Yet looking at the Jade Scepter, my eldest sister did not reach out to take it. She gently shook her head. "Thank you, Your Highness, for your generous affection. It is only that I have reflected upon myself just now, and I realize my virtue is too shallow to deserve Your Highness's favor. As for this position of Crown Prince's consort, I beg Your Highness to choose another virtuous lady." Having endured such a chaotic scene, the Empress was thoroughly fatigued. Waving her hand, weariness hung heavily in her tone. "Very well. As for the matters of you young people, sort them out yourselves. This Empress is somewhat tired and will return to take an afternoon nap." With that, she rose and departed with the support of her attendants. Unreconciled, Xia Tingyu chased after her, his voice full of grievance. "Imperial elder brother does not wish to marry, but I certainly do. Mother Empress, Mother Empress." A consort selection banquet meticulously prepared came to such an abrupt end. Inside the carriage returning to the estate, my eldest sister sighed and took my hand. "Today, you were truly wronged." Looking out the carriage window at the rapidly retreating streetscapes, her voice was very soft. "I once thought His Royal Highness the Crown Prince was an insightful, impartial, and upright man. Seeing him today, he is nothing more than this." Guilt surged through my heart, almost drowning me. "Sister, it is all my fault. If not for me, your marriage with the Crown Prince." "Silly talk." My eldest sister interrupted me, turning her hand over to pat the back of mine. "It is I who should thank you for helping me see through him." Turning her head, her gaze was clear, holding no resentment whatsoever, but instead carrying a sense of release. "Since he does not understand how to respect others, how could he possibly know how to respect me after marriage?" My eldest sister possessed a broad mind. She had always been someone capable of letting go of whatever she picked up. However, others were not necessarily so forgiving. The moment the carriage pulled to a stop at our estate gates, my father strode forward with a darkened face. Without even glancing at my way, he raised his hand and slapped my eldest sister across the face. The crisp sound of the strike pierced through the quiet estate entrance. "Qiao Wanru, you really have grown bold. Your ambitions reach the heavens, daring even to look down upon His Royal Highness the Crown Prince." My father's furious rebuke caused my ears to ring. Panicked, I prepared to step forward to intervene, only to be yanked by the wrist by my mother, who materialized out of nowhere. Without a word of explanation, she dragged me back toward my courtyard. With a loud crash, the courtyard gates slammed shut, ordering the guards to secure the entrance. My mother turned around and launched into a furious tirade. "Has your brain turned to soup? Such glorious wealth handed right to you, and you failed to grasp it." Looking at her exasperated face, I found it utterly laughable. You can steal status and position, but you cannot steal genuine affection. Does mother expect me to spend my entire life in the East Palace playing deaf and mute beside someone who does not love me? And what of it? My mother argued with absolute self-righteousness. Did I not come through the exact same path? Though I am a concubine, within this household, who dares withhold respect? How am I any different from the legal wife? That is because father holds you in his heart, unable to hold back any longer. I raised my voice in refutation. Mother froze in her tracks, staring straight into her eyes. I spoke word for word. Father accommodates you everywhere and protects you because he cares for you. Otherwise, given your schemes, you would have long since been driven out of the gates with broken legs. As the words left my mouth, a burning pain flashed across my cheek. My mother's hand remained suspended in midair, trembling all over with rage. You have rebelled. My affairs are not for you to lecture me on. Pointing straight at my nose, she issued a command. Someone lock the second young lady in. Without my permission, she is not allowed to take half a step outside her room. Confinement had always been her sole method of forcing my submission from childhood. Yet this time, I refused to obey any longer. I went on a hunger strike. By the evening of the third day, Chang Mopo, the most capable wet nurse by my side, walked in bearing food and tried to persuade me earnestly. Second young lady, why torment yourself like this? The mistress only did this for your own good. Staring at her, the moment she set the food box down on the table, I shoved her aside abruptly and bolted out the door. The two matrons guarding the courtyard gates never expected me to pull such a stunt. Before they could react, I had already sprinted far away. Yet searching everywhere within the estate, I could not find my eldest sister's shadow. Flustered, I casually grabbed a sweeping maid to question her. Startled, the maid stammered out. Master ordered the eldest young lady to go to the East Palace to apologize. She refused, argued with Master, and ran out. Feeling as though all strength had been drained from my body, my legs grew weak and I squatted powerlessly by the estate entrance, my eyes instantly turning red. Where could she have gone? Just then, a hesitant voice sounded beside me. I know where your sister is. A short while later, I found myself sitting inside a swaying carriage, staring wide-eyed at Xia Tingyu across from me. The carriage interior felt stuffy, and the atmosphere was indescribably awkward. Pulling myself together, I offered a low word of gratitude. Thank you, fifth prince. Seemingly unaccustomed to such courtesy from me, he waved a hand, his earlobes turning red once more. It is merely a minor effort. No need to thank me. As long as I can help you. His gaze was too open and sincere, resembling the midday sun, making me feel somewhat uneasy. Turning my head uncomfortably away, I looked out the carriage window at the passing streetscape. Noticing my embarrassment, Xia Tingyu gave a light cough, nimbly scrambled out of the carriage through the door, and went to squeeze beside the driver outside. After traveling for roughly half an hour, the carriage halted at the foot of a serene mountain. Peephole curtain lifted. I immediately caught sight of the familiar temple nestled halfway up the mountain. In my past life, it was right here that my eldest sister spent her days amidst green lamps and ancient Buddhas until her final breath. A sharp ache pierced my heart as I prepared to alight, only to see two figures standing before the temple gates. It was my eldest sister, along with Xia Chen. They seemed to be arguing over something. The mountain breeze intermittently carried Xia Chen's icy voice over to us. She was never a well-behaved woman to begin with. My public humiliation of her was solely to vent your anger. Wanru, why on earth must you reject me simply because of this? My eldest sister's voice remained gentle, yet carried a detached, chilling aloofness. Your Highness speaks incorrectly. When I was sickly and bedridden in my youth, Man ran barefoot to beg father to secure a physician for me. Usually, whenever she obtained any novel trinket, she was always the first to send it to my room. If she wanted something, I handed it to her directly. Why would she ever need to snatch it? You have simply been deceived by her. Xia Chen's tone grew somewhat impatient. You do not know what enough. My eldest sister cut him off. Since your Highness harbors such deep prejudice against my younger sister, from now on, there is no need for us to meet again. With those words, she turned and stepped inside the monastery, slamming the door shut with a loud bang. Xia Chen stood before the doors for a long time with an ashen face, ultimately having no choice but to flick his sleeves and stride away. Seeing me stare blankly toward the monastery gates, Xia Tingyu gently nudged my elbow. Are you not looking for your sister? Hurry along then. I shook my head, my voice turning somewhat hoarse. We should turn back. Why? Because I have realized. Lowering my eyes, I stared at my own fingers. Whenever my sister suffers, it always seems to be because of me. It was so in the past life, and so it remained in the present. As long as I existed, her life was destined to be thrown into chaos. Frowning in disagreement, Xia Tingyu argued with a hint of grievance. Partiality stems from your parents. It is not your fault. If you dare not go, I shall go on your behalf." With that, he hopped cleanly down from the carriage, strode toward the monastery gates, and knocked firmly upon the wood. Knock, knock, knock. In my past life, I had countless times knocked upon these very doors. Back then, unaware of the truth and fearing her loneliness up here on the mountain, I frequently ran over to converse with her. My eldest sister never found me a nuisance, always brewing the osmanthus tea she sun-dried herself for me. Today was no different. The doors opened. Seeing it was me, my eldest sister was startled at first, then spotted Xiaotingyu standing off to the side. Once Xiaotingyu explained the cause and effect of our journey, my eldest sister burst out laughing in spite of herself. Lifting her hand, she tapped my forehead with moderate force. My departure from home was a well-considered decision, and I never once stated I blamed you. What on earth are you fearing in that little head of yours? Burying my head in her embrace, I felt like a rain-drenched beast with nowhere to turn. Of course I knew she wouldn't blame me. Yet it was precisely this lack of blame that pierced my heart like fine needles, causing a dull ache. The suppressed grievances and self-blame of my past life surged forth, choking my throat with sour tears. After 1,000 words, they ultimately dissolved into a muffled declaration. I am not leaving. I will stay here to keep you company. My eldest sister patted my back resignedly, taking it as agreement. Seeing I wasn't leaving, Xiaotingyu refused to leave either, shamelessly pointing to a minor scrape on his calf caused by a stirrup. He claimed he was injured from horseback riding and that the journey back was far too long for him to move comfortably, meaning he had no choice but to stay as well. Life in the mountains was austere, yet tranquil. Behind the dwelling ran a babbling stream, while fields of wild flowers bloomed across the mountain in front of the courtyard. Every day, I busied myself helping my eldest sister with chores, washing clothes, cooking meals, sweeping and tidying up. Seeing this, Xiaotingyu insisted on helping me with the chores as well. Yet he was truly clumsy, either spilling water or burning the rice. Finding him quite exasperated yet hesitant to show it directly, I could only resort to subtle persuasion. Since your highness has been out for so long, Her Majesty the Empress must be worried in her heart. You should hurry back. Thinking of something, Xiaotingyu's handsome face flushed bright red, and he stiffened his neck to retort. It is nothing. I am not suffering. You do not need to worry about me. Standing nearby, my eldest sister burst into laughter at the sight, shaking her head as she observed, both of you are absolute fools. Days passed easily and joyfully in this manner. Yet such tranquility was bound to be disrupted by someone. Xia Chen frequently visited the mountain in search of my eldest sister. Having lived through a rebirth, he had spent his past life pining with unrequited yearning. So how could he easily let go in this one? Yet my eldest sister persistently refused to see him. When the front gates remained closed, he scaled the walls instead. Today happened to feature fine weather. Thin mists drifted through the mountains like a light veil draped over the verdant peaks. After consuming a cup of the fruit wine newly brewed by my eldest sister, feeling slightly intoxicated and stirred by inspiration, I sat on a stone stool in the backyard and played a tune on my bamboo flute. Before the melody concluded, a cold voice rang out behind me. I have truly underestimated you. Turning my head, I saw Xia Chen standing not far away, his expression as dark as a gathering storm. Even the flute melodies your sister plays, you must steal away as well. Glaring at me, his eyes were filled with sarcasm. Living your life over again, why are you still unwilling to give up? Emboldened by the alcohol, my courage surged. Lowering the bamboo flute, I glared coldly back at him. I have known how to play the flute since childhood. Whether I play it or not is of no concern to you. Standing up, I brushed away non-existent dust from my skirt. As for you, in broad daylight with the monastery gates firmly shut, where exactly did you climb over the wall from? What wretched upbringing? A fleeting look of embarrassment crossed Xia Chen's features. Immediately afterward, he resumed that self-righteous demeanor. I am driven to this out of desperation. If you had not meddled, usurping everything that rightfully belonged to your sister and driving a wedge between us, I would not have had to resort to such drastic measures. Too lazy to argue with these points, I turned to walk away. Yet once again, he spoke up from behind me, his tone carrying a sense of condescending charity. As long as you promise to stop seizing your sister's belongings from now on and behave properly, I will take you as my wife. My footsteps paused. I heard him continue, it is only that you can merely be a concubine. Furthermore, just like in your past life, in this lifetime, you will never bear children of your own. A shudder racked my entire body, as if my blood had frozen solid. All the anxiety and doubts of my past life found their source in this exact moment. Swinging around violently, I stared straight into his eyes, my voice trembling. I cannot bear children. Was that your doing? So what if it was? He admitted it calmly, even carrying a hint of gratification. You forced Wanru into a lifetime of unwed solitude, so I naturally had to impose some punishment upon you to vent her anger. My heart felt as though it had been violently gouged by a razor-sharp blade, pain constricting my breath away. The unease and remorse that tortured me day and night in my past life transformed entirely into monstrous revulsion. Slap! A crisp sound echoed across the backyard. Putting every ounce of strength into the blow, I struck his face hard enough to whip it sideways, instantly raising 5 red finger marks across his cheek. Get out! Pointing toward the outer wall, every word seemed squeezed from between my teeth. Xia Chen. A person like you, in this life and the next, will never be worthy of my eldest sister. Bearing the distinct red handprint upon his face, Xia Chen returned to the East Palace. While palace attendants cast sidelong glances and whispered in low tones, he paid them no mind, merely instructing his personal eunuch, go to the treasury and fetch that jade flute presented in tribute by the western regions last year. He remembered that Xiao Wanru played the flute. Our first meeting took place on a late spring day in March, when the river waters rose for the first time. Accompanying the Imperial procession, he spotted a small covered boat from afar on a painted pleasure barge. A young woman sat at the bow, facing away from him, playing the flute as the wind blew. Her figure was slender, her dark hair like clouds, and her flute notes clear, resembling springs flowing through mountain ravines. Regrettably, the boat moved too swiftly. Before he could catch a clear view of her face or inquire after her identity, the small vessel vanished into the river mists. When he asked an official nearby, the official smiled knowingly. Your Highness, I hear the Qiao sisters were boating on the river today. Given such serene and refined postures, it must surely be the eldest young lady of the Qiao family. Ever since that day, Xia Chen had kept Xiao Wanru in his heart. He exchanged letters with her like migrating geese, pouring out mutual affections. In her letters, she always loved to mention her younger concubine-born sister, Qiao Wanqi, describing how lively, adorable, and innocent she was. Yet Xia Chen always felt aversions. He had crossed paths with Qiao Wanqi on several occasions. Her features were overly alluring, and with every flicker of her gaze, she hardly looked like a well-behaved woman. Xiao Wanru never believed him, claiming his prejudice ran too deep. As a result, the Qiao Wanqi of his past life indeed resorted to schemes, usurping her sister's position as crown prince's consort and leaving her with lifelong regrets. Fortunately, everything could be relived. Yet the Qiao Wanqi of this lifetime seemed even more reluctant to let matters rest. It was one thing for her to deliberately attract butterflies during the consort selection banquet, but now she had even stolen her sister's flute to play it in the courtyard. What was her goal? It did not matter. Whatever was snatched from her, he would always find something better for Wanru. Clutching that warm, translucent jade flute, he hurried anxiously toward the monastery. The moment he laid eyes on Xiao Wanru, a smile finally surfaced on his face as he extended the jade flute toward her. Wanru, do you still remember our first meeting? When you played the flute at the bow of the boat? I specially sought out this flute to give to you. Might you play a tune for me once more? Looking at him, Xiao Wanru furrowed her brows in deep impatience. I do not play the flute. She stated the fact with flat indifference. The only one in our household who plays the flute is Man. The smile froze on Xia Chen's face, as if he had been doused with a basin of icy water. Observing his expression, Xiao Wanru realized what had transpired. With a flash of sudden comprehension, she gave a cold, mocking laugh. So that was it. No wonder your highness held a special regard for me from the very beginning. You had mistaken the person. Stepping back, she widened the distance between them. However, fortunately you were mistaken. Someone self-righteous and devoid of basic discernment like you is not worthy of even a fraction of my younger sister. Dazed and disoriented, Xia Yichen departed the residence, Xiao Wanru's words echoing repeatedly in his mind. Impossible. How could the person playing the flute be Xiao Wanxi? How could that scheming, frivolous woman possibly produce such a refined and ethereal flute melody? He refused to believe it. Dispatching men to question every servant in the Qiao estate, he even tracked down the elderly music instructor who originally tutored the Qiao sisters. Advanced in years yet possessing a sharp memory, the instructor told his messengers unequivocally, this old woman only ever taught flute to the second young lady of the Qiao family. The eldest young lady studied the guqin. A surge of sweet iron rose in Xia Yichen's throat, roiling with suffocating blood. At that exact moment, his personal eunuch scampered inside, bursting with radiant joy. Your Highness! Tremendous news! Word just arrived from the palace. Her Majesty the Empress is bestowing a marriage between the 5th prince and the second young lady of the Qiao family. Wonderful! Finally! You no longer need to worry about being pestered by her. The rumored bestowal of marriage was naturally not yet finalized. Noticing Xia Tingyu visiting my quarters daily and realizing his intentions were genuine rather than a passing whim, the Empress specifically summoned me into the palace. Inside the Phoenix Pavilion, warm incense drifted lazily. Taking my hand, the Empress appraised me affectionately. The day of the consort selection banquet, when butterflies landed upon your temples. This Empress knew we shared a bond. Sighing, she patted the back of my hand. During these past days, you have suffered from the harassment of my unruly son. What is your assessment of his character? Lowering my gaze, I answered softly. The 5th prince possesses a genuinely kind nature and is an exceptionally good person. The smile on the Empress's face deepened further, pressing eagerly for an answer. Then suppose this Empress bestows a marriage between the two of you, would you be willing? Out of the corner of my eye, I glanced sideways toward the 12-fold landscape screen inside the hall. Behind the screen, the hem of a dark robe flickered faintly. Feeling completely reassured, I prepared to open my mouth. Mother Empress, you cannot. Xia Yichen suddenly burst in from outside the hall, looking so frantic that he forgot all protocol. Rushing directly before the Empress, he cut off our words. You cannot bestow her upon 5th brother. Startled by his entrance, the Empress furrowed her brows. Chinner, what madness are you enacting this time? Xia Yichen's gaze locked onto me, carrying a complexity I could not fathom. It held regret, urgency, and a trace of panic, unlike anything I had ever witnessed before. Taking a deep breath, he spoke every word clearly and deliberately to the Empress. This son also harbors affection for the second young lady of the Qiao family. Seniority must be respected. Mother Empress ought to bestow her hand upon the son first. As these words dropped, the entire hall fell silent. The hem of the robe behind the screen violently twitched, and Xia Tingyu could no longer hold back, leaping straight out from behind it. His handsome face flushed crimson with rage as he pointed right at Xia Yichen's nose and cursed. Xia Yichen, what madness have you caught? For no good reason. Why are you snatching my beloved? Yet ignoring him entirely, Xia Yichen kept his gaze glued to me, as though trying to burn 2 holes through my figure. He said, I knew you first. His voice was hoarse, carrying the fragile vulnerability of a near-breaking heart. I merely mistook the person. Man, will you give me another chance to make amends? Gazing at him, I found his behavior merely absurd and ridiculous. This was the very man who in my past life stripped away my right to motherhood and publicly humiliated me in this life, only to run up and spout such nonsense to me now. I had no idea what kind of relapse he was suffering from. Yet I still shook my head, my tone calm yet resolute. Your Highness, I hold no feelings for you. Before Xia Yichen could retort, the Empress impatiently cut him off. rubbing her temples. Exhaustion and disappointment hung heavily on her face. What on earth are you trying to achieve? You have neglected state affairs these past few days, running out to the city outskirts daily, and now you act absurdly enough to snatch your own brother's beloved? Fixing her gaze upon Xiaochen, her eyes turned as sharp as blades. On the day of the consort selection banquet, before all civil and military officials and noble daughters, who was it that claimed the second young lady of the Chiao family was full of schemes and unworthy of being an imperial prince's primary wife? Hearing this, Xiaochen turned as pale as a sheet, as if all his strength had been sucked away. Reaching into his robes, he produced a jade flute. The flute was unctuously warm to the touch, evidently of superior quality. It was my fault. His voice was hoarse, laden with fracturing pain. I was the one who failed to recognize true worth. Back then, I thought the person playing the flute on the river was Wanru. How could I have made such a mistake? Looking at that flute, all the obscuring mists of both past and present lives dissipated completely in this instant. So his seemingly devoted kindness toward my eldest sister also stemmed from an absurd mistake in identity. I found it utterly laughable. A single misunderstanding had ruined the lives of 3 people. Without the slightest politeness, I opened my mouth, my voice as cold as early winter frost shards. The one you favored, was it the flute melody, or was it the person? Meeting his pain-filled gaze, I spoke syllable by syllable. Your Highness, your affection is far too superficial. I never had it in the past, and now, I want nothing to do with it. The moment those words settled, an unprecedented sense of relief washed over me. Turning toward the Empress, I curtsied, my voice clear and steadfast. Mother Empress, this subject's daughter holds affection for the 5th prince. I beg your Empress Majesty to grant your grace and bestow a marriage between myself and the 5th prince. Stepping out of the Phoenix Pavilion, Xie Tingyu looked as though he were treading upon the clouds, floating weightlessly. Moments of elated dancing alternated with moments of drooping dejection. We are finally together. Trailing closely beside me, he stammered incoherently in his excitement. You even took the initiative to ask for the marriage yourself. I must be the happiest man in all the world. Yet within a few steps, his face collapsed again as he anxiously peeked at my expression. Were you simply trying to take revenge on my imperial elder brother by requesting this marriage with me? Unmistakable dismay laced his voice, though he quickly forced himself to rally. Still, this is fine as well. To serve as your tool is something I do willingly. This anxious, insecure demeanor of his was enough to drive me out of my mind. Halting my footsteps, I looked at him with sincere focus. I am not despicable enough to use another person's genuine heart as a tool for revenge. Watching his eyes widen in tense anxiety until they nearly popped, I softened my tone. After all, sincerity is the most precious thing in this world. Besides, I have never lacked the courage to fall in love with someone anew. Xie Tingyu, you are a good man. I genuinely care for you. Upon hearing this, he froze entirely, his pair of lovely peach blossom eyes blown wide round as if he had just heard an incredible fairy tale. After a long pause, he fumbled with his nods, his handsome face turning as red as a boiled prawn. I will go find a carriage to send you back, stammered out, turning around with a goofy grin and proceeding to march left foot and left hand forward in awkward synchronization. Before I could issue a warning, a loud splash echoed through the air. He had tumbled straight into the ornamental pond of the Imperial garden. Consequently, by the following day, a bizarre tale swept through the capital. It was said that upon finally securing a bestowed marriage with his beloved, the 5th prince had become so overjoyed that he flung himself straight into the lake on the spot. Many treated him as a laughingstock, discussing it over tea and leisure. Countless others envied me, proclaiming I had struck incredible luck to net such a devoted husband. Only Xiaochen, upon hearing the news, smashed everything within the East Palace that could possibly be broken. Refusing to give up, he frequently rushed to the gates of the Chiao estate, standing there for hours on end attempting to request an audience with me. Yet I consistently avoided seeing him. I would never turn back. The lonely depths of the Imperial Palace in my past life, where he confined me to the position of Empress to preserve that lingering fantasy of my eldest sister in his heart while withholding any genuine warmth, had left me trapped in bitter melancholy, stripping away my appetite ever to play my beloved bamboo flute again. Once inflicted, harm could never be erased. If I were to forgive so easily, I would do a grave injustice to my former self. My mother, however, appeared quite smug. Frequent attendance at banquets found her weaving mentions of me into idle gossip with aristocratic madams. Our man is truly blessed, with both the Crown Prince and the Fifth Prince captivated by her. It makes all my years of upbringing well worth it. While seemingly harmless at first, the narrative warped as it spread. Ugly rumors gradually surfaced outside, claiming I was fickle and wavering between two imperial princes. Taking these remarks directly to my father, I confronted him. Listening to the reports, my father predictably attempted to shield my mother just as he always had. They are merely idle gossip among women. You need not take them to heart. Father, I am soon to marry the Fifth Prince and become a primary imperial consort. Yet rumors about me now flood the streets. If we fail to address this promptly and Her Majesty the Empress lays blame later, I fear the entire Qiao family will bear the consequences. Faced with the choice between ethereal romance and tangible political standing, father evidently favored the latter. He issued an immediate decree exiling my mother to a rural estate on the outskirts of the city for self-reflection, forbidding her return without his explicit command. On the day of her departure, my mother wailed and threw a tantrum at the estate gates, acting like a frantic madwoman, clutching my sleeve with a death grip. Her face mirrored sheer disbelief. I am your birth mother. Man, how could you treat me this way? Peeling back her fingers one by one, my voice carried not a trace of warmth. Your obsession with power and profit drives you to calculate against even me at times. I can no longer keep you by my side. Gazing into her despairing eyes, I continued, I have already made arrangements at the estate. Your food and provisions will not fall short, so life there will not be unbearable. When I have time in the future, I shall come visit you. Unreconciled and wishing to make a scene, my mother was seized firmly by two robust matrons dispatched by my father and shoved forcibly inside the carriage. In the days that followed, I prepared for my wedding with peace of mind. No matter how Xia Chen repented, how many rare treasures he dispatched, or how many affectionate letters he penned, I remained completely unresponsive, returning every single item unopened. Perhaps he finally understood that I would never forgive him. On the day of my wedding to Xia Tingyu, word reached me that Xia Chen had gotten dead drunk in the East Palace, galloped wildly across the capital on horseback, and unfortunately tumbled from his mount, snapping his leg. After treating him, court physicians declared that even if healed, a permanent limp would remain. Naturally, a crippled heir apparent could no longer inherit the supreme throne. Before long, the position of Crown Prince passed to another. He requested permission to leave the capital and retire to his fief for recuperation. Rumor had it that he would never return. None of this mattered to me anymore. It was a magnificent spring day, featuring gentle breezes and melting, warm sunlight, accompanied by Xia Tingyu in plain civilian attire. I knocked upon the gates of the mountain monastery. Opening the door, my eldest sister greeted us with a gentle, smiling expression, swishing the empty earthen jar I held by its cord. I blinked at her and smiled, looking just like a cat that had stolen the cream. Sister, is there any of that bayberry wine left from last time? I should like another drink. The story is now complete. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and support me.